Pledge allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome and thanks for coming to the regular August meeting already for the Greencastle School Board. First item on the agenda is adjustments to the agenda, Mr. Gibney.
Yep, I don't have any adjustments to the agenda
Alright.
for this month.
Okay, next item is public comments regarding agenda items. Does anyone have any comments? Okay, hearing none, moving on. I take it we have no recognitions tonight?
Nope, not
Okay.
in our office, but I would like to
Okay,
recognize our staff and students for obviously handling everything that's been thrown their way over the summer, and with all the construction and work taking place. It's challenging enough opening a school year and starting a school year, and I've just been very pleased with how our students, our staff, and our parents have represented themselves and have handled the many changes and curveballs thrown their way.
okay, next item is the approval of the consent agenda, which consists of meeting minutes from a special meeting of July 11th, 2022, executive session meeting minutes from July 25th, 2022, regular meeting minutes from July 25th, 2022, the allowance of claims, the financial report, and personnel reports part 1 and 2, which are on the website and hanging on the doors. Mrs. Rowland.
Yes, hello everyone.
Hello.
In your finance packet, you're gonna see, 2 regular payrolls, and then we also had a mini payroll. If you were thumbing through there, you might have seen that. The first regular payroll was dated July 8th, 2022, for a total payroll of $349,641.87. And as in the past, we have to, go ahead and give you the full history on that report. So you'll need to go ahead and flip through, get past page 11, and then we'll look at the accounts payable for the July 8th payroll. That would be for retirement and payroll taxes. Total for the July 8th payroll was $105,256.78.
Wait a minute, I'm still scrolling.
Okay,
26.
I'll slow down.
Page
And
26.
Page 26, okay.
We are working on some solutions to
Yeah,
tackle this.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then, July 13th, we had a mini payroll. We had an IA that, did not get a time sheet in timely, but she needed to be paid. So we went ahead and did a mini payroll for her. That was dated July 13th, total payroll, $375. Not much there as far as, the history. There was only one person. The payroll taxes for that employee was $57.38. And then the second regular payroll for July was dated July 22nd, 2022. Total payroll, $339,211.28. And if you want to go ahead and get through all those pages with the total list.
47, page 47.
And then we've got the accounts payable for the retirement and payroll taxes for that July 22nd payroll was $100,881.18. And I think your page numbers are probably different because they're all consecutive.
Yeah.
So, and I'm dealing with hard copy here. So the next thing I'm gonna look at is a list of prepays. And at the top, you're gonna see it, it says after checks, accounts payable voucher, dated July 1 through July 31st, 2022. Okay, those total prepays was $1,857,091.52. And as nearly every July, we always make our debt service payments. So that's why those, the prepays are gonna be quite a bit higher for July. Did anyone have any questions about any other prepays?
I did not.
No? Okay. All right. And then we've got a list of claims that are dated today, August 22nd, 2022. Going down through the list, was there anything that anyone had a question about as far as some claims for this month?
No.
No.
We did have, I'll point this out, we did have our final laptop payment for the middle school and high school. That's why our list of claims is so high this month. You'll see that on there.
I see we got a new dugout roof put on.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It's good.
we're in bad shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some sidewalks that were replaced. You can see that there. So anyway, we've got a total of claims dated today, $455,244.99. And if we're ready to move on to the finance report, okay? All right, next in your packet, you're gonna see the fund report. This would be final balances at the end of July 2022. Education fund, $2,798,684.60. Operations fund, $2,065,191.31. And then if you go to the last page, it's page 5 of the fund report. Total for all funds is $8,938,899.17. And then you're gonna see the depository statement next in your packet after the fund report. You see the bank balances at the end of July 2022, minus outstanding checks. The only bank that we had outstanding checks for was Bank 10. The fund, or the balance for all banks minus outstanding checks is $8,938,899.17. And if you swing back to the last page of the fund report, you'll see that that balance is with our total funds. And then we've also got a couple of fund transfers that we also need to do per State Board of Accounts and have you sign off on those. We just have our traditional education to ops transfer that we do monthly. And then I mistakenly revenued Title I money into old Title I fund instead of the newer one. And I caught it as I was going through my review. So I had to go ahead and transfer that revenue from the old fund to the new fund. That was a pretty easy catch. I just didn't catch it before I closed out. And then we've got the expenditures for bond 2021, the end of July 2022. Total expenditures were $4,959,756.12. You'll see the list of payments that were made out of bond 2021 for construction cost, publishing cost, engineering cost. So total to date, expenditures out of bond 2021 is $5,006,083.67. And I believe that's all I have. I'd like to submit for approval.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I will second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is reports. First report, Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Rich.
Yes, so I've provided you with just an overview. This month, we're kicking off our reading adoption launch, and it's been several years since Greencastles went through an official adoption, curriculum adoption, and the whole process, the formal process. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview. This month, we're gathering a committee of teachers, principals, counselors, and anyone who wants to participate in that. The only criteria to participate is that you have to participate in the science of reading professional development, with the rationale that you have to understand what best practices of reading look like in order to select the best, most effective curriculum. So upon completion of that professional development, you can participate. And so towards the end of the process, we'll also involve other stakeholders from the community groups or parents, but right now we're focused on teachers and the actual implementers. And so this fall we'll be reviewing curriculum, and then with the winter, the idea to test drive or field test several lessons in those so that they can understand the experience on both the teacher side and the student side, with the overall goal of bringing that proposal to the board in the spring for official reading adoption. And I also invited Mrs. Tammy Keenan to come. She is our new Ivy Tech site director.
Yes.
And we have some exciting opportunities that the state is providing through grants and partnerships with Ivy Tech, so I asked her to come and share a little bit about that.
Great, thanks.
Thanks for having me, I appreciate it. I got a couple of things
get to that piece here, I just wanted to say thank you we are partnering with Greencastle this year to offer dual enrollment classes free of charge. And we do have 6 students that have taken advantage of that, and today was their first day in class, so we're off and running with that program.
Great.
It is a COM 101 class and a Psych 101 class, and we're offering them like 8-week courses back to back. So we're excited that some students were able to take advantage of that and become eligible for it. And then the Department of Education has given us a great opportunity to apply for a grant called Attract, Prepare, Retain. And it is our efforts to try to mitigate the shortage, the teacher shortage that we have, all over the place, but certainly in our area. We have several schools that have partnered with us, and certainly Greencastle is one of those. The grant is not yet approved, so I'm a little premature, but we're very, very hopeful. We expect by the end of the month to hear an answer. I think we're all holding our breath a little bit, really excited. It's about just under a $500,000 request for us. And Ivy Tech, I'll just give you the 5 points to it so you get a little excited, because we're all pretty excited about it. But with this grant, we would be able to partner with the schools to identify existing employees who have interest in becoming licensed teachers, and to put them on a pathway to being successful in getting that certification and license. The second step is that we'll establish a scholarship, 100% tuition for 11 individuals in the area. We do have 11 schools partnering. The idea is to be able to award one of those to each one of the schools. Third, the goal is to provide a pathway for high school students to earn the technical certificate. And for every student that moves on through the grant to earn that technical certificate, Ivy Tech will provide a $500 stipend to partner with that as well. And then fourth, we will host an on-campus experience for prospective students at partnering schools, called A Day in the Life of an Educator, where they'll shadow other student teachers already in the program so they can understand what it's like to be a student in that educational program. And the goal is to obviously accomplish an associate's degree pretty quickly, so then they can move on and transfer to a 4-year college. And then we'll have, as a retention effort, a on-campus summit for educators at partnering schools. And so that summit would offer different professional growth points, different type of speakers, and just valuable education to come towards, for these specific individuals. So the goal is by the end of this month that we will hear. So that's what we're all hoping for. And thank you for partnering. It's really a great program. We hope it helps a lot.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Any questions for me?
So do we have the capability to grow these 6 students in the future, I hope?
Well, we certainly do. Our funding right now, because these are free of charge, right now we have the funding through this semester. We're certainly working for that to be continued. We won't know that yet. I wish I knew that now, because I would love to have the good news out there. But unfortunately, we're just going to have to keep working towards trying to get that funding set aside to continue these opportunities. And our goal is, we know with the shortage as well, that there's not an abundance of credentialed teachers to even teach some of these programs, so we're hoping to help that out.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
So is the funding is there just enough funding for 6, or will we just have 6?
We just have 6. We
Okay.
would certainly take as many as the school is able to provide, or as many wanted to come in, but that's the 6 we're able to take advantage of it. There are performance thresholds that have to be met, like a GPA and certain scores for somebody to be involved in the class too.
Okay.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
It's encouraging because it's something we pushed for, is more partnership with our local Ivy Tech, and they've been listening and working
We
with us.
certainly
and
want to, yeah.
trying to help in some of these opportunities, because it hopefully help them build their enrollment,
Yep,
and also help us fill some needs here for some of our kids.
we're
We
definitely
appreciate
open to opportunity for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, yeah,
Good.
I think it's a great thing. I'm super
Sure.
glad
Yeah,
to hear
sure.
that, because like you said, it's something that we've been needing and
Yeah.
wanting, and so, yeah. pretty cool.
Well, we certainly hope to create more opportunity to do that in the future too. We love working with you guys. All right, thank you so
Yeah,
much for
thank
having
you.
me.
Yeah,
thank you
Appreciate
very
it,
much.
Jenny, thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have.
That's all you have? Thanks. Next item, the superintendent report, Mr. Given.
Yeah, we'll go a little more brief this month because I have more exciting information to share later when I share the budget.
Oh.
My favorite time of year, probably not everybody else's. But I already shared the recognitions for start of school. Again, our people have been really great and very patient. I would like to extend my thanks and appreciation one more time for that. We did sell bonds last week, and we're going to close on those September 7th. So the 4.7 million in bonds at an all-in true interest cost of 3.488%, I believe, which is up slightly from the last issue, but still not horrible. We expect there to be another rate hike here in the near future that could be pretty significant. So that'll help us finish off the middle school and primary projects. Middle school project, of course, which we awarded the bid to Weddle Brothers, and we're still waiting, anxiously awaiting kind of their sequencing, their schedule to begin that work. Roughly, we expect to begin around fall break, but they should provide us with that information this week, so that way we can prepare our staff and parents and the community for that. But very exciting. We'll work on a larger update for the overall project next month.
Okay, thanks. Next item on the agenda is old business, and there is no old business. Which brings us to new business. The first item is an approval request for the 2020, well, okay. Is it really an approval
It's not,
request?
it's a public, that should state
Right.
public hearing.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to open the public hearing on the 2022 collective bargaining session that's gonna be coming up soon. So with that, we'll open the hearing.
Yep, so what this is to share a little, or the objective is share a little bit about what we can bargain, what we cannot bargain. There should be a display for it. Just update with the regulatory restrictions for the guidelines, but also to afford public testimony. Subjects of bargaining are limited salary. I'm on slide 3 already. Salary, wages, fringe benefits, etc. Next slide, please. Prohibited subjects of bargaining, those various items up there. Those are all items that we do discuss with our association. Next slide. And that's another kind of continuation of that as well. Next slide, please. And then the timeline for bargaining. So we can't officially begin bargaining until September 15th. We also have to have our public hearing, which we're holding tonight. And there's some various other kind of milestone dates there. For instance, once we reach a tentative agreement, holding another public meeting, sharing specific information before we can actually ratify and then have the board approve the agreement. Next slide, please. And so those are just the other parameters that we have to follow with how our collective bargaining process is governed as well. And then the final slide, which is we want to allow some public testimony, which we want to limit to collective bargaining, and again, just being concise and cordial, and like to welcome anyone that would like to comment to the floor.
You all knew I was going to do that, so. I just want to start by thanking the board and the administration for the continued partnership with our association. The last legislative session brought many attacks on public education and educators specifically, and the legislation we maneuvered last session was exhausting, and I fear this legislative session is going to be much worse. So I come before you to ask for your continued support. It's very important that we continue building a community coalition to support public education. Our students are counting on us, so I ask you to come alongside us and to help us fight for what's best. You see, what's best for students includes more than the content being taught in math or what book we're reading in language arts. It also includes transporting students to school, making sure they're fed and well cared for while they're in our care, sitting alongside them to provide support and interventions to help them succeed both academically and personally. That isn't even the tip of the iceberg. Last year, we were able to increase the salary schedule to meet the state-mandated $40,000 minimum salary. We are thankful that our financial situation has allowed us to get to this point. While I know it isn't raining money, We are more financially stable now than we were 5 years ago, and I'm very thankful for that. We have 118 educators covered under the collective bargaining agreement. The statistics show that most teachers leave education within the first 5 years. I'm happy to say that at GCSC, 55% of our teachers have been here more than 5 years. Of that 55%, 40% of our teachers have been here for 10 years or more, and that's just at GCSC. That's a third of our staff with 10 or more years here in our corporation. In fact, we have 3 educators that have dedicated over 30 years in the classroom just in our corporation. We have amazing staff, and I'm proud to call this my home. As we move into negotiations this year, I would like us to take a serious look at how we are compensating our dedicated employees. While we know the teacher shortage is real, we also know that it is equally important to take care of our loyal, dedicated GCSE employees. This is something that Mr. Gibney and I have already been discussing, and we will continue to discuss through negotiations. In closing, I would like to thank you for all that you do for public education, and once again, ask everyone, the community, the board, and administration to help us support public education. Remember, our future generation is depending on us. We can't do this alone, and there's power in numbers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing no more comments, we will close the hearing. Next item on the hearing is agenda is an approval request for the 2022-23 school or safe school plan.
Yep, so as is customary at the start of the year, the administrators, and staff review our safe schools plan, our emergency preparedness plans, and, I have to certify those, certify to the DOE within 60 days of the start of the school year. And so, we're just seeking approval of that, confidential, plan, just to letting you know that it has been updated, and, we'll be moving forward with, certifying that to the Department of Education.
So that's not really nothing we need to vote on either, is it?
We can vote to approve it.
Yeah, typically we like to
Mm,
approve
we're
it, so
going to-
to
okay.
have
Alright.
it in the records.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is an approval request for the Curlin bus purchase agreement.
Yep, so, as I shared with you, in your board packet, really we have some goals to work towards, catching up our fleet. There's some years when we didn't, for whatever reason, one reason or another, we didn't end up purchasing, buses. And typically you like to keep your fleet, 12 years, keep all of the buses in your fleet, 12 years or newer. And the only way to essentially make significant gain in updating your fleet, or really kind of catching it up, is to purchase multiple buses. And so, we've been working with, Curlin on some financing arrangements to essentially allow us to do that, to purchase some more buses, to receive them up front, but then to spread that cost over multiple years, through a lease arrangement. So we're looking at a 6-year lease. What we have in the proposal are 6 full-size, 80-plus passenger, 84, I think they're actually 84 passenger Thomas transit-style buses. And then also 2 full-size 46 passenger white activity buses. And the white activity buses would be used to haul students to band competitions, academic competitions, take elementary students on field trips, take teams to athletic events. One of the nice things about these white buses is they really instill a sense of school spirit, community pride. Would have our logo on the side of them as well, so they can be moving billboards throughout our community, in other communities. We currently don't have any of our activity buses, or our full-size activity buses have air conditioning. These buses would also be air conditioning for comfort of the driver and the students on some of these long trips. So I think it's just a really good opportunity to do that. So 6 yellow buses, two of the white Thomas buses. They're the same size of bus, there's just fewer seats on them. These are kind of transit style seats. And in order to do that, if we're able to finance for 6 years, we're able to come in at a cost of, or an annual budget of what we typically spend on a school bus, and that's right around the $275,000 mark. We've already been notified by our salesman, our vendor, that there are going to be significant price increases on school bus. There are also going to be shortages of school buses, and so we want to make sure that that we're able to obviously kind of lock in our purchase and be able to move forward so that hopefully sometime next fall we can take possession of some additional school buses.
And the 2 new white buses would also free up, because don't we have a few designated and set aside for
Correct.
field trips,
Yes.
sporting events? These would free those yellow buses back into the fleet of,
Correct, yes. So we have 2, I think it's 1 or 2, and Kyle, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 2 that are set aside typically just for ECA trips, and that aren't necessarily used on routes. The white buses would be used strictly for ECA trips. The yellow buses would be used for bus routes, picking up students
Right.
to and from home.
and those white buses would not really be in the rotation of getting new buses. We would anticipate keeping them a little bit longer.
Keeping them
than we
12
would.
years at least, potentially longer.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
yep, so it would be my recommendation that the board approve being able to move forward with that financing arrangement with Daimler for those 6+2 buses.
So is it an all or nothing? Can you get the 6 buses without the 2 buses? Does it need to be all 8 buses?
My recommendation would be that we would do the full 8, but ultimately, that's something that the board could either approve or disapprove. But yeah, it would be the goal to move forward with the full package.
We're really doing better doing all 8 though, correct? Is that
Correct.
from a pricing standpoint?
Yes.
We're doing better to do all 8.
Yeah, well, and considering that doing this 2 years down the line, so we can
We
consider
know
more.
that things are gonna be affected by inflation, like,
Mhm.
like just even, I think, next month, they're having a hard time even holding their prices as long as they are right now. We're basically good until, kind of our board meeting to kind of really get something hammered down here quickly, because we are expecting a price increase.
Right. Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, can I get a second?
I guess I have to second to bring it to a vote, correct?
Either you or
Yeah,
Mike can
I'll second it, I'll second that.
I'm just not sure we need the 2 white buses. And I think they're gonna cause problems when it comes to scheduling on who gets them, who doesn't. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Well, to speak to that, we will have a plan to make sure that they are used equally, and again, these are not just for athletics, for academics, for field trips, for all of the above.
Okay, well, I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, I guess that brings that to me then. I necessarily really don't think I was sold on the idea to begin with, but we discussed the scarcity of buses in the future and that those 2 free up other buses for all students around daily. I would vote yes. So, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is an approval request for permission to advertise the 2023 budget, CPF plan, and bus replacement plan.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, my favorite time of year, budget time.
Oh, here we go.
It's
So-
not that long. It's not that
No,
long.
it's not that long. And you've heard it before, but I do think it, obviously, our school finance and budgeting is important, so I do want to give it the time that it deserves. So if you could move to the next slide, Corey. So, listed on the screen are the primary budgeted funds, for Greencastle, and for school districts. The only one that we don't have listed, is the rainy day fund, because the intent of the rainy day fund is to have a reserve to not necessarily use on an ongoing basis, but just strictly for that emergencies. So we have our primary budgeted funds. The primary use and primary source of revenue, excuse me. So we receive our education fund dollars, or dollars that impact the instructional environment from the state and through our tuition support. So that's based on our student count and also the other various grants through the state. Our operations fund, so it's a combination of our up to 15% transfer from the education fund to the operations fund. And then obviously our local property taxes are the primary source for operations. So operations are things to help essentially pay the salaries of people to help take care of our buildings, to help fix things in our buildings and things of that nature. Then obviously the debt service, so debt service fund, and so we're actually using that fund to renovate and improve some of our facilities currently, and that's strictly funded through local property taxes. Pension bond, and so that is also funded by our local property taxes, and we actually use our lit tax dollars here to pay our pension bond fund. Next slide, please. And so one of the challenging things when building a budget is all of the different variables, and actually 20 different variables strictly for state tuition support on all the various different count days throughout the year. And so you can see the first 9 listed there. So we know that we have our fall count and our spring count, but there's some other counts that help to tabulate the support that we receive. Next slide, please. And then variables 10 through 20, which also impact the state tuition support that we receive. Next slide, please. And then so our fiscal year 2023 state tuition support total. So that's the other challenge when it comes to schools is we build our budget based on a calendar year, yet we're funded on a fiscal calendar. And so we have to work through those things, right? And so essentially I've listed based on our predicted enrollment, based on our student count. We have a tuition support worksheet that we use to create an estimation for building the school budget. And so right there is what we expect to receive should all things remain constant through the end of next June. So from July 1 through June 30. That if everything remained the same, that's what we would expect to receive. So, that doesn't necessarily project for losses or gains in student count. Next slide, please. And so I think it's just helpful to kind of compare one fiscal year to the next. And so primarily the difference between 22 and 23 is our ADM count, or our student count, has remained, or has kind of gotten to a point where it's plateaued. It hasn't increased significantly. It hasn't decreased, significantly. But the state legislature did increase school funding, and this is actually the final year in the 2-year biennium. And so hopefully in this next legislative session we'll see additional increases. But you can see there, I obviously I didn't calculate the total there, but you can see that there's roughly a $340,000 increase from fiscal year 22 to 23, which is a good thing because we certainly don't want to see that number go down. There have been some years where that has gone down, and that makes it really difficult to build a budget and give staff increases and take care of everything that needs to be taken care of. Next slide, please. So we're building essentially the budget on an 18-month revenue plan and an 18-month spending plan. So we have to never lose sight of the big picture. So we have to understand how the education funds and operation funds interact with one another. So that's that transferability between the education fund and the operations fund. And then obviously, certainly the balances within education operation funds, because we've worked to build those back up to a little bit healthier level. Because it's never a good thing if you're in a situation where you have to sell tax anticipation warrants or borrow money. And we're certainly not in that position anymore. Looking at enrollment, whether it's increasing or decreasing, that's the single greatest probably impact to schools. And then obviously flexibility can kind of create danger, and so you just kind of want to think of the multi-credit card syndrome. You really want to be careful from borrowing from one place to pay another, and so a great example of that is using something like the rainy day fund to pay reoccurring expenditures. And so the rainy day fund really should just be used for one-time expenditures because you need those costs essentially kind of built into your budget. Next slide, please. And so here's our budget preparation calendar, and it's a little bit more interesting here since we have an appointed board. Mrs. Romer and I will be meeting with the county council and going through a couple of additional steps in addition to our school board meetings, and this timeline, which is pretty much corresponding dates calendar last year, will allow us to adopt our budget, CPF plan, and bus replacement plan in time, in meeting the timelines set forth by the DLGF. Next slide, please. And so, so that tuition support worksheet was actually built on a projection. I did project a 10-student loss from last spring to this fall, and carrying that forward into next spring, a decrease of 10. So again, with seeing that it's somewhat plateaued, still want to be conservative with our revenue estimates, but we don't want to overdo it either. So you can see our projection there right now, and we're pretty close to that mark right now. We still are cleaning up new enrollments and withdrawals, so I expect it to be somewhat close to that mark. Next slide, please. So in the 2023 budget, just some general assumptions. We will actually be moving 5 certified positions from the rainy day fund back to the education fund. So when we couldn't afford the staff that we had, we were paying for those positions out of the rainy day. That helped us to improve the education fund, and now is the time to put all of those staff positions, all of our expenses back into the education fund. Just the general expectation that utilities will increase by 10% each year. Hopefully not much more than that. I know that it's kind of a moving target, so to speak. Same thing with property and casualty insurance, just projecting for some additional increases. And then obviously that final assumption being our ADM, our student count. Next slide, please. So, so for the education fund there, you can see 18 months of revenue, 18 months of expenditures. Obviously, we don't, this is not we receive all of our funding from the state, so that thus there is no levy and no rate that we're advertising for that fund. Next slide, please. So for the debt service fund, again, same thing there, showing our 18 months, showing our revenue, showing our expenditures, advertising a levy of $5,243,642, at a rate of $1.2485. Another factor, an important factor to keep in consideration here is the budget was built on an assessed value of $420 million, or 85% of last year's assessed valuation. And so the one thing that we know is, and that's to protect our levies and our rates, but as our assessed valuation goes up, our rate goes down. So we always advertise high, and that number will come down. Because one of the things that we promised our taxpayers when moving forwards with our construction projects is keeping that debt service tax rate flat, or hopefully dropping slightly. And our assessed value that did come out, what did we grow by, like 8.8%? So we even grew more from last year. So you'll see a slide here in a second, we'll show more on that. Next slide, please. Pension debt fund, again, so we don't advertise a levy or rate for that because we use our lit dollars to pay off that pension debt fund, and we only have a couple more years of doing that, so we're getting closer to the end, which is a good thing. Next slide, please. The operations fund, so a levy of $4.1 million and a rate of 0.9762. Another consideration with the operations fund, again, as assessed value goes up, that rate will lower. And one of the things that this fund is subject to is maximum levy, based on a growth quotient from the state that essentially our levy can only grow by so much from one year to year, and so that number is obviously inflated and a little bit higher to make sure we get our max levy. Next slide, please. And then the rainy day fund, again, which shows our revenues and shows projected expenditures, and again, we don't collect any property tax funds from that, so we don't advertise a levy or a rate for that fund as well. Next slide, please. And so again, it's billed 18 months in advance. Obviously, the final budget's determined by DLGF approval. They can come in and they can cut those things down based on those statutory factors. Certainly, it's impacted based on our funding sources and even the operating balance in each fund. Next slide, please. So I think this slide's nice because it kind of shows, again, how we, on the left-hand side, you can see the advertised versus the certified. And so the certified is the final budget once it's certified by the DLGF. And you can see that on the left-hand side that it's always advertised high, and on the right it comes back much lower. So we expect that same thing to take place there. And in knowing that our assessed value has grown as well, that's also helped. So overall, I expect a final rate in the same ballpark of where we were in 2022 as well.
Okay.
Next slide, please. And so essentially, we are seeking permission to advertise the 2023 budget, the CPF plan, and the bus replacement plan. And so I just have the information shared on the screen for you, and I'm just seeking approval to move forward with that. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I make a motion to approve permission to advertise.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion or question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item is an approval request for the 2022-2023 evaluation plan.
Yep, so essentially, we're seeking to move forward with the same plan that we used for certified staff last year, which is based 100% off of the rubric. We know that the state obviously isn't going to assign school letter grades anymore, and they've made some changes. And the goal is to essentially use last year's plan this year, and then spend the bulk of this year studying our current plan and seeing if there are any major changes or adjustments that need to be made looking into the future. And so our evaluation plan and our teacher appreciation grant policy are something that we have to certify or submit to the state here sometime soon. So we would just like to the board to approve moving forward with those changes.
So we're continuing what we did last year and looking to see if it needs changed for next year.
Like longer term, just in general, and it's probably been quite some time since we've really taken a deep dive. And so is the overall intent and purpose for the plan and the way it's written now capture what we truly need, or what truly would be helpful to help just improve teaching and help improve our practice. And so we work with the association to do that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I don't think we did.
We didn't even do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll make a motion. I'll make the motion.
And I will second.
Now we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next is an approval request for the Life Fitness Purchase Agreement.
Yep, so obviously we are working on making improvements to our facilities, and just like we did last month with classroom furniture, it's also the time to look at approving a purchase of some equipment for our new facility. And so, the Life Fitness Purchase Agreement, it was all bid through Sourcewell, because obviously over a set dollar amount, we have to kind of go through a bid process, and since these are all part of a public bid process already, it's that, you know, we don't have to do that. It satisfies that request, so we've worked with the vendor to secure pricing on the equipment for the new weight room to be housed at the high school. And this was part of our bond budget. And in order to kind of lock in our pricing, not kind of, but to lock in our pricing so we're not subject to any additional increases, it also put it into production on time to have it delivered and installed at the completion of our project. It's time to move forwards with ordering it. And so it'd be my recommendation that the board approve moving forward with the request to purchase the equipment from Life Fitness in the amount of, yeah, bear with me, I'm just scrolling there too,
118.
$385,087.84.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item is an approval request for the 2022-23 West Indy Co-op contract with food services.
Some like you guys are scrolling through there. So this is just an annual thing that we have to do. Obviously, it's just cooperative purchasing, more aggressive or better pricing for food service, so that way we can keep our costs down. And so it would be my recommendation that the board approve this request to participate in West Indy Co-op.
This is something that, like, we're not locked into for any period. I understand there's a date, but.
So we're not locked into purchasing a certain amount or any specific. This just gives us the option to purchase at a lower cost. So it's just a cooperative purchasing agreement.
Okay.
We're not mandated to order set dollar amounts.
Okay.
It just helps to lower the cost.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is an approval request for some donations. And each of these four are to Greencastle High School Athletics in the amount of $1,500. First one being from Hassler Trucking. Next being from Greencastle Pediatric Dentistry, Epic Midwest Insurance, and McDonald's. All for $1,500 each to the high school athletic department.
Yeah, $6,000.
Yeah,
I make a motion, we say thank you and accept.
Yeah, I agree, I second that.
okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Just to add to that, we did have the big check presentation to Greencastle Schools last Friday. It opened the night of the football game, the big $40,000 sponsorship check, which was amazing. And we just really appreciate our community partners.
Yeah, it's nice to have two athletic trainers.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, next item is other business. Does anyone have any other business?
But it's not other business necessarily, but I wanted to extend a thank you to everyone, all teachers and staff and everyone. Just kind of echo what Jeff said. I know we've had a crazy couple of years, and this year is much different with the buildings being torn apart and all of that. And I know we have some new teachers and two new principals and So, you guys are greatly appreciated, and, I'm sorry that you don't hear that enough, but you really are, and I think dealing with everything we're dealing with and have been dealing with, some real grit, and I just appreciate it, so I wanna say thank you.
I agree.
I second that. Yeah. Okay, any other business?
Oh, to the new middle school, I like the sign out there that says, please don't block ramp. I appreciate that. Mrs. Rhodes, how are things going at TZ with the new setup? With the kids moving classes halfway through the day for your 4th and 5th graders? Good. Mm-hmm. Good, good.
Good. All right, next item on the agenda is adjournment.
I'll make a motion.
I will second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all for coming this evening, and hopefully see you next month.